Let's go Ravens! The conversation around Trey Hendrickson has suddenly taken an unexpected turn, and Ravens fans may not be prepared for just how bold the discussion has become. Because a question was raised that initially sounds almost impossible to take seriously. In fact, when it was first mentioned, the reaction was immediate disbelief. How could anyone even suggest it? After all, this franchise has seen some incredible pass rushers over the years. Yet once the argument was fully explained, it became clear why so many people are paying attention to this debate. Before we continue, make sure you've already clicked the like button if you're a true Baltimore Ravens fan. And if you're feeling optimistic about this team's future, leave a comment below saying, "Go Ravens! The future is bright!" I want to see how many members of Ravens flock believe this defense is about to become even more dangerous. Now let's get directly into the story. The discussion began with a simple question: should the Ravens' acquisition of Trey Hendrickson be receiving significantly more attention than it currently is? According to the conversation, there are several statistical arguments suggesting that his arrival could end up being one of the most important moves the organization has made in recent years. What immediately caught attention was the focus on pass rushing efficiency. One statistic highlighted was pass rush win rate, a measurement designed to evaluate how frequently a pass rusher defeats his blocker. According to the information discussed, Trey Hendrickson has produced a pass rush win rate of at least 20% in each of the last 3 seasons. The claim that followed was even more surprising. The discussion stated that the Ravens have never had an edge defender reach that mark. That is an extraordinary statement. Not because it dismisses the accomplishments of previous Ravens defenders. Not because it ignores the history of the franchise. But because it focuses on one specific area, pure pass rushing. The conversation then moved to another statistic. According to the discussion, Hendrickson recorded 83 total pressures during the 2024 season. The last Ravens edge defender mentioned as reaching that number was Terrell Suggs in 2010. However, the comparison became even more interesting because the discussion noted that Suggs required 142 additional pass rushing snaps to reach the same pressure total. Now, the conversation was careful to acknowledge an important distinction. Terrell Suggs was not simply a pass rusher. He was also recognized for his ability to defend the run and set the edge. He contributed in multiple phases of defense, which naturally led to him spending more time on the field. The point being made wasn't that Suggs was less valuable. The point was that when evaluating pure pass rushing production, Hendrickson's numbers become extremely difficult to ignore. Then came a third statistic. According to the discussion, Hendrickson earned a PFF pass rush grade of at least 90.3 in each of the last 3 seasons. The last Ravens edge defender mentioned as reaching a 90-plus mark was Elvis Dumervil in 2013. Taken together, these numbers led to a bold conclusion. The argument presented was not that Trey Hendrickson is the greatest edge defender in franchise history. The argument was much more specific. From a pass rushing perspective alone, the claim was that Hendrickson may be the best pure pass rusher the Ravens have ever had. That is the type of statement guaranteed to create debate among Ravens fans. And honestly, that's understandable. When discussing pass rushing history, names like Terrell Suggs naturally enter the conversation. Those players built remarkable legacies. Yet the statistics being discussed suggest that Hendrickson's efficiency and production as a quarterback hunter may place him in an entirely unique category. What may be even more important is what this could mean for the current Ravens defense. Throughout the discussion, there was a recurring theme about closing football games. The belief expressed was that Baltimore has been searching for a true closer on defense, someone capable of consistently affecting opposing quarterbacks in the biggest moments. According to the conversation, that missing piece could become a season-defining factor, especially when games become tighter and the stakes become higher later in the year. And that's where this story becomes truly fascinating. Because this isn't simply a conversation about statistics. It's a conversation about expectations. It's a conversation about impact. And it's a conversation about whether Trey Hendrickson could become one of the most influential additions the Ravens have made in years. But as exciting as those numbers are, another discussion quickly emerged involving Jesse Minter, Lamar Jackson, and some incredibly ambitious expectations for the future of this franchise. And what was said next may surprise even the most optimistic Ravens fans. The discussion became even more interesting after the Trey Hendrickson debate because it shifted from pass rushing statistics to something Ravens fans have been talking about all offseason: expectations. And not just normal expectations. Massive expectations. One fan shared an incredibly optimistic vision for the future of the organization, and it immediately sparked conversation. The prediction started with Lamar Jackson. According to the discussion, the fan predicted that Lamar would throw 57 touchdown passes while tossing only 3 interceptions. The projection also included 475 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. The reaction to those numbers was exactly what you would expect: shock, excitement, and disbelief all at the same time. Because let's be honest, those are enormous numbers. Historic numbers. The kind of numbers that would instantly become one of the biggest stories in football if they ever became reality. But surprisingly, that wasn't even the boldest prediction that followed. The conversation then moved toward Jesse Minter. And this is where things really escalated. According to the fans' comments, there was a belief that Jesse Minter could become the coach who completely changes the long-term trajectory of the franchise. The discussion suggested that Minter might not only have success with Lamar Jackson but could potentially build something much bigger over time. Now, the response to that prediction was cautious. Not dismissive, not negative, but cautious. Because as exciting as optimism can be, there was also an acknowledgement that success at that level requires an incredible amount of things to go right. Coaches must work together. Players must stay healthy. Systems must function properly. Teams must improve throughout the season. And perhaps most importantly, they must perform when the stakes are highest. That idea eventually led to another fascinating discussion. What should Ravens fans realistically expect from a first-year head coach? Because while there is excitement surrounding Jesse Minter, there is also an understanding that building a championship-caliber team is never simple. One fan specifically raised this point. The concern wasn't about talent. The concern wasn't about belief. The concern was about history. According to the discussion, there is a perception among some fans and analysts that the Ravens enter this season with Super Bowl or bust expectations. Yet the fan questioned whether that standard is completely fair given that Minter is entering his first season as head coach. It's a fair question, because expectations can be complicated. On one hand, excitement exists because of the roster. On the other hand, new leadership naturally creates a learning process. The discussion acknowledged exactly that. Everything is new. The coaching relationships, the communication, the systems, the adjustments, all of those pieces need time to come together. And while nobody questioned the talent available, there was recognition that reaching the postseason is difficult enough. Once you get there, the challenge becomes even greater. Because in the playoffs, there are no second chances, no series, no opportunity to recover from a bad game later in the week. One game can determine everything. That reality became one of the central themes of the conversation. The margin for error becomes incredibly small. Every mistake matters. Every possession matters. Every decision matters. And that's why one comment attributed to Jesse Minter stood out so much during the discussion. The focus wasn't simply on being great early in the year. The focus was on becoming the best version of the team at the right time. That's an important distinction. Because many teams look impressive early. Many teams generate excitement during the regular season. But the teams remembered most are often the ones that peak when everything is on the line. The conversation repeatedly returned to that concept. Growth, development, improvement, building towards something bigger as the season progresses. And when you combine that philosophy with the addition of Trey Hendrickson, the excitement surrounding Lamar Jackson, and the optimism surrounding Jesse Minter, it becomes easy to understand why expectations are so high right now. But expectations and results are two different things. The talent may be there. The belief may be there. The excitement is certainly there. Now comes the difficult part, putting it all together. Because if this team can truly become the best version of itself at the most important moment of the season, then all of these off-season conversations about Hendrickson, Lamar Jackson, and Jesse Minter could eventually be